So for some people that cannot be here tonight, it offers them an opportunity to catch up on what's going on. So let's see. Hi, John.
Sunday's result.
Okay, just a minute. We're on a tight schedule until like 6:30. Okay, so if you have any information or want any information or would like to help support our efforts, please see Michelle over here. She's doing our membership and she can help sign you up. Okay, so tonight we're privileged to have our District 1 council person, Eric Joyce, and he's on a tight schedule. So what we want to do is here until 6:30, and then we have an update of the Seagaze Tower after that. So what we want to do is kind of hold some of the questions until the end. It's going to give us a brief update, and then maybe like at 6:15, we can have some questions. And what we want to do is raise hands, no just shouting out, okay? Let's do it that way. And without further ado, welcome Eric. Excuse me, Councilman Joyce.
Thank you. No, you can still call me Eric. Please call me Eric.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'll warm up. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you if I haven't formally met you before. I tried to knock everybody's door, but you know, there's only so many days in the campaign schedule. So my name's Eric Joyce. I am a D1 resident. You should always make sure your council member lives in the district. I actually used to live a stone's throw away. I rented a room, you know, many years ago over in Alberta. So I do love this neighborhood. It's a really cool, family-oriented neighborhood. So it's good to be back. I actually never been in the school before, but I'm a teacher. I'm a special ed teacher. I teach 5th and 6th grade in a district outside of Oceanside. So I don't typically see all my kids at the restaurants if I go out, which is very rare since I also have 2 young children. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old. I ran because, for many reasons, but I'm actually a really big believer in local government and serving locally and finding a way for us to leverage the work that we want to see in our neighborhoods from the city council itself. I believe your council member should be somebody that you know, somebody that you can curse at if you need to, and call up and complain if you need to, and they should be able to get back to you. I think that's really important. This is where our lives are really impacted by the decisions that are made. Today we had a budget workshop, and every single line item on there represents something that changes you and your families and your neighbors' livelihood for the future. So I take those decisions really seriously. I am very passionate. I stay up late. As I said, I already have another job and 2 young children, so any waking moment I have, I'm thinking about the things that I can do for our district and for the people that live here, and I'm really passionate about that work. Do you want me to go into the questions that you sent ahead of time?
Sure, can I read a little bit about each one, and then I'm sure they'll have questions.
Sure. Okay. So, very organized host here sent several questions ahead of time, and I know are on everybody's mind. The first one is about the homeless shelter on Oceanside Boulevard being open for folks to go. I have a little bit of tweak in the wording for that. The previous council did invest in opening that site. I hesitate to call it a shelter because I think of a shelter as somewhere where someone can walk up and stay for the night. This is not that. This is a navigation center. It is run by an organization that's outside of the city, and they are using the space that we are letting them use for the next 3 years to provide a temporary place for folks to stay while they are making their way to other housing. I know it's kind of slicing words, but I just want to be clear about what we are providing. It's not something for people to walk up, it's for people to be referred to by our homeless outreach team or by other social workers that work within the city. And so there are real limitations on what is to be expected as an outcome from that. When it comes to serving the homeless population and moving them out of the situation of living on the unsafe streets, there's a continuum of services that we need to provide. And so while I am looking forward to the Navigation Center filling some of those needs, I am trying to be realistic about the fact that we do have other things that we'll need to invest in order to meet the need, which, as you all know, is very great. The second one was about the security force and how do you feel it's helping? I have dual minds on it. So I get a lot of positive feedback from business owners downtown who have seen an improvement in the feeling of safety that their customers feel, the feeling of safety that their workers feel coming to work, in the sense that there is a responsive force that is working to move homeless individuals away from the fronts of their businesses and into other spaces. My concern about the privatization of that service now not being on the police, while it is nice that our police force can go out and do more proactive policing, a private company, and this is what I expressed from the dais, does not have the same culpability that a public entity like a police officer would, whether it comes to wearing the cameras or to their rules of engagement. And so I just want to know more information about the way that they operate to make sure that they are, as a contractor from us, representing the interest of what we as a city want them to be doing. Yeah.
So was that decision made to go private to save costs, reduce costs?
Well, I can't say that I know exactly why, because that was made before I came to council. It was made, probably, I can guess that it was made for a variety of reasons. One is so that the police officers could do more of the proactive policing and they weren't having to react so constantly. But if you have a sustaining force of individuals there, I think the thinking was that it will move folks out. Yes?
So I've seen it, I've hung out at Breakwater having a beer, and the weird thing is watching them chase the homeless people or chase somebody. And so I wonder their qualifications. They seem very young.
Yeah.
And I feel like actually they're gonna get hurt because they don't know what they have here.
Yeah.
So
think
I
that's
am a little concerned
valid
just
concern.
because of some things I've seen.
Yeah, and the other concern, which I didn't bring up yet, is that I've heard from people who have lived here their whole lives and felt like they're being followed by those individuals. So it is a balance for sure. I think it's worth us all having real conversations about the impacts of having a privatized force and what it means to feel welcome in a space, right? What it means to feel safe and also welcome. Those are two things that we have to find a balance of. So, yeah, I share concerns too. Yes?
Hi, yeah, I grew up here too, and I know Kelly lives down here. In fact, I was on Alberta Street for most of my life, right where you were. So anyway, to answer to your question, I live a little more downtown. I'm sorry, Jane, I didn't know it was from Mission this way. But this is my old neighborhood, my old hood, so.
Everyone's welcome.
And, it's made a world of difference down there. And as Eric said, the shop owners and the tourists that come feel a little more safer. Now, Kelly can maybe say something different because they might have moved them out of that area. But number one, the police department was not fully forced at the time. And so the chief, kind of wrung his hands like, we can only be so many places so many times. And they were having a real problem down there. With the force, I think they're probably, they are connected throughout the state. So I think they do know the people. They've got a database that they can communicate and find out who these people are. And
I'm just concerned for their safety.
yeah, well,
I'm not concerned we have a force. I'm concerned for the young force's safety when they're not approaching somebody.
These are
Yeah,
good
what I mean is I
comments,
think
but
they-
I want to kind of keep it going a little
Yeah.
bit, and then we can have more discussion a little later.
So the next question was about the sand. There's always some sand lover out there.
Probably a room full of them here.
Yeah. So since I've been living here, I've been body surfing out at the Rock. That's like where I go. So body surfing and sand. If you body surf, you need sand. pretty important. So the amount of sand available each year is different. This year, our scoop permit is gonna get us more sand than usual. We applied for a deeper scoop essentially in the harbor. As I know I'm speaking to some people who already know a lot about this, but the sand itself is not the perfect sand, but it is sand that will help in the temporary by putting it back on our beaches. We don't know how far down it's going to go. I know that was a follow-up question. I think Tyson Street was about where they're aiming to get to, and with the amount of sand that they're getting out of the harbor, that's the realistic idea about where it could get to for now. We're also looking at being opportunistic offshore and trying to leverage our county contacts. So the regional sand replenishment that happens, it's supposed to be happening in the next couple of years. That is a very large amount of sand that we're hoping to bring in. Nothing is finalized. I don't have like a number to report out about that, but that's an ongoing effort. And then the other piece is the retention, which is in phase 2 right now. And we expect to have the design competition that was set up to get innovative designs to retain sand on the beaches is going to come back to council, scheduled to come back to council at the end of this calendar year. So that would be our next step over here. All right, what were the brilliant ideas from around the world to keep sand on our beaches, which is a problem that is faced in many, many, many other beaches as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, if everything goes smoothly without any hiccups, when is the sand gonna get to the beach? Because I'm 81 years old, and I'd like to be alive when this happens. And, you know, I know we started on this project a long time ago, back in '82, when they were talking about these retention things. And then the Army Corps of Engineers is supposed to have been here to bring sand in and put it on our beaches that are south of Tyson. And they haven't been here since 2012, October. That was the last time they did that.
So
what are we gonna do?
Yeah. So you brought up a good point, actually. I didn't even say about the Army Corps. Thank you for bringing it up. Would you like a job with the office?
I just like to
The pay
get
isn't great.
things done.
The Army Corps is scheduled to wrap up their study within the next year.
What are they studying?
They're studying what the impacts, I know, we all know the impacts, but what are the impacts of the harbor being placed in there on the beaches to the south of it? They have to complete an actual study on it in order to do any kind of funding. So they would potentially be funding a major multi-decade project to provide sand as a recoup for destroying parts of our beaches.
So will there be any funds in the United States government to be able to fund that when they finally decide what they're gonna do?
Well, the Army is one of our better funded programs of the federal government. So if they say that they're on the hook for a bunch of sand, I think that's a really good thing because we could take it from as many different programs as possible, for sure. So I'm optimistic about that one. The gears grind to a halt sometimes when you're working with those other agencies, just like with Sandag, but we're pushing, and the great thing that they did was hire Jimmy Timberlake, who is a professional in this arena and who's working constantly, and that's her job to work on our coastal program. So that's a really good piece. Long-term strategy, nope, that's the other one. Neighborhoods impacted with traffic and parking with the Coast Highway. How can we work together before the redevelopment goes in? So, good news today. I asked, well, sort of good news. We could use your help. We extended our program for traffic calming. And so we hadn't had a traffic calming program in many, many years. And Measure X, this last fiscal year, had $300,000 added to a traffic calming program. So that is new spending that was completed this year. And as we looked at our budgets today, another $300,000 was in there for traffic calming. So that it is well known that the areas that are around the Coast Highway Corridor project are going to be impacted. And so we are also thinking ahead that needs to be part of our traffic calming overall program. In addition to that, I asked that our staff take on a different program that has more funding that specifically provides traffic calming around schools and parks. Because the current traffic calming program only allows you to do traffic calming when there's a certain amount of cars, when the road is long enough, when there's a certain speed that is hit on average. There's all these lists of things, for good reason, right? You don't want council members going, hey, put in two bumps in front of my house. You really do want a program, but what that program misses is that there are certain places where we need to be thinking bigger than just those specific programmatic ideas. So I have asked that the staff bring back a budget that includes that, and so I'm hoping that they'll do so, and if you feel like advocating to your local government, please do. Yes, Joe.
So I've been advocating for years, and one of the problems with our traffic calming program is it's about streets. And the streets people don't talk to the landscape people. And they need to work together, because the number one thing you can do to slow traffic on your street is plant trees in the parkway. Not in your yard, in the parkway.
Yeah.
And we also have a code that allows people to pave our parkways. And I've been trying to get that changed for years and years. And so I need everybody's help to get that code changed so that you can't just concrete them in, and you do have to plant trees. And that's the number one way we can impact our traffic.
Yeah.
So we need to get those two together.
+1. I'm with Joe.
I've been saying this a long time. I'm not anti the traffic calming at all, but there is going to be an unintended consequence that's going to occur in the neighborhoods, and that is just things like Google and Waze redirecting traffic. It happened to my wife and I when we were in Pacific Beach, where all of a sudden we used to be able to play football in the street, and we had to start parking our car so we could pull out. My concern is, I agree with what we're going to do, but Ditmar, all the streets, of course people are going to be redirecting. I mean, the freeways were just shut down last week because of certain things, and I was on the streets of Encinitas, and so I mean, of course we're going to do that if anyone uses technology. My question is, and I've never gotten an answer, and I brought this up many times, do we have any idea for when that's going to happen?
For when?
When all of a sudden we're going to have all this calming here on coast, but Ditmar is going to be the thoroughfare.
Yeah, so that would be a really important part of the process, of the design process, I think, for when they're looking at the coast highway.
Any of the streets that are going that way,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's going to be technology that's going to direct you, and the locals will drive slow, but the people that are from the hotels or coming off the 5, they're going to be like, they're going to be pissed,
Right.
they're going to be tired, they're going to want to get home.
Right.
So just,
Yeah.
I'm really wondering, I remember talking about this in planning meetings, and no one says anything other than nothing.
Well, I mean, I've had direct conversations with our council, our city manager, about the traffic impacts of shutting down to one lane each way, and that there will need to be some type of program that looks at, because there are gonna be certain streets that are impacted more. I mean, there is a reasonable way to look at that holistically, yes.
I propose that I will gather some of this information of the impacted streets and follow up with you either with an email or meet with you guys,
that'd be great.
okay? So I plan to do that within the next month.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I neglected to introduce
Oh, yes.
my council, yes, the mayor's here too, I was gonna.
Hi,
I wanted to introduce my council aide, Esmeralda. She, if you call my office, you've gotten her. Because when I'm at school teaching children, she is carrying out all the really important work that this office demands. And so I couldn't do what I do without her, so just so you know. She's taking great notes, and we always have great notes afterwards on what we went over. So, number 6, the OTC. Okay, I have some great news. When I leave, if you want to go tell the OTC developers what you think about the development, that's about when you should. So they're going to be presenting that tonight at 6:30 in the community rooms at the Civic Center. There'll be a little bit of time you can wait because they'll have a presentation first, but this is the last planned community meeting for the Oceanside Transit Center development before they submit their environmental documents. So it's a really big milestone in the development process. If you have something to say, I really suggest you say it today. And if you can't go there, then send them an email at outreach@osideTransit.com. Yes.
So, Eric, good to see you again.
You too.
You know the issue that I raised.
Yes.
With regard to the bus bays moving to that location. At the March 16th meeting, NCTD, at the end of the meeting, debuted something that we found out in April happens to be true. They're gonna put an exit at Missouri and South Cleveland for all southbound buses. Now, in talking to them, we've asked them to improve the site, and they've made some minor modifications. But this is a wholly different substantial change, and it will put all this traffic on this small local street going to Coast Highway. Is there anything that you might be able to do to help us? Because I've talked to Toll Brothers, I've talked to Chris Orlando, I've talked to Tracy Foster. They're gonna do an analysis, but what they've told me offline is, you know what? It's probably not gonna make a difference. We're probably still gonna recommend going out this new exit at Missouri and South Cleveland. And that really impacts us not only by moving the bus bays south, but by now having all of that traffic, which creates traffic congestion, pollution, significant impacts. Is there anything you might be able to do to help us with that, getting a voice there?
Yeah, so, as you know, thanks for coming by. My impact on this development, I've given my closed door impact to, my closed door feedback to the developer, but nothing is formally before me yet. So, as the EIR comes back, I can continue to work through staff to give my feedback, of which I have lots, and I have given lots to the developer. I'm gonna continue to do that, and I think I would recommend reaching out to everyone you can about this as well. This development is critical to get right. It's critical. It is going to be the bellwether of what downtown is from here on. I mean, it is 547 rooms, hotel of 162, and then the NCTD headquarters, and then, oh, by the way, making it more accessible to be on all the forms of transit, which all end at the OTC. There's nothing more critical to the next 20 years in our development than I think this is. Yes?
Lane Stewart, and I live at the 400 block of South Tremont, and I've been meeting with Arlene from the outreach since September, and been to all the transit meetings, and they seem very, not condescending, but set in our ways to neighborhood, people who live there that understand the circulation. As far as with Coast Highway, I worked on the charrettes with the Coast Highway Vision back in 2008. Spent a year with that, and if this is gonna go to one lane each way, and they wanna bring the buses up Missouri into a one-lane road, and Missouri is a residential street, that I'm guessing they would have to take parking in order to make it wide enough for the buses to come out without, because there's business parking, there's a residential parking there, and there's that 7-plex condos right at the corner of Cleveland and Missouri, and there's 5 or 6 apartments right at the corner of Tremont, on the northwest corner of Tremont in Missouri, and all of our little, people that live, all along Tremont in this old neighborhood. My house was built in 1920. So if the buses are, the buses coming out that way, and that's the southbound, and I guess they've suggested the northbound would exit Michigan, and I don't know if they were planning on crossing Michigan to go north or heading north on Tremont. Would they have to remove parking from Tremont Street? I'm not sure. It's not really shown in the plan, and even in the, the draft EIR is still getting put together, but it's to be out at the end of the month. But with 540 apartments, and maybe 1 parking per apartment, there's gonna be more than 1 car per apartment, even though this is supposed to be transit oriented. I think it's not real forward thinking to think that every person that lives there's only gonna have 1 vehicle or no vehicles. That being said, I believe the impact for traffic and where those buses, if they're gonna have to pull street parking, really needs to be looked at while it's still on paper.
I agree.
Because if, once,
No, I
the
completely
bulldozer
agree.
hitting the
Yeah.
concrete pours,
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting to see.
I appreciate that, and I do wanna stay close in dialogue with you all, because, as Roland knows, I think and talk about OTC all the time, it's really important. So, as much as we can move it, it's really important, yes.
Hi, I'm Mark Jacobson, I'm in the 4 Black of South Cleveland, neighbor of Kevin's. This is really not just NIMBYism. You look at the development and you drive the perimeter, the most densely residential area, the greatest number of people impacted is the South Cleveland area, South Fremont area. Those
Speak up,
neighborhood
so we can hear
areas.
you.
And they're taking the worst externality of the whole development of the project, which is otherwise nice within 4 corners of the development, and dumping it into the most impactful area, which just, from a city planning standpoint, does not make sense.
Yeah, I mean. so-
Okay,
stay
one more
close. I
thing,
know, I don't wanna wrap.
we're running out of time, so, these are all good comments, and if you haven't signed in with your email, please do so, we as OCNA can follow up with you and give you some of those emails about where to send in and so on.
Really quickly though, because you had a couple other questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Styrofoam and plastic bag. Do you all know the question that, when is the city gonna look at banning styrofoam and plastic bags? So I am happy to report that I have partnered with the mayor to get an agenda item on the next agenda to direct staff to look at ordinances to make us environmentally conscious about what we have going into the ocean, being right here beside the ocean is really important. It will include provisions that make it so businesses that operate within the city have some runway, and that we're partnering with them, so we're not just throwing them out on the street and forcing up their prices, which we know small businesses are really the backbone of this community. So I think it's a well-balanced proposal, and I'm really excited to support it. I'm very excited that the mayor partnered with me on it.
Thank you.
And Eric, when would that be, coming to council next?
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Do we have a meeting on May 3rd, is that right? Yeah, next week. Yeah, so we're like kind of at the end. Are there any lingering big questions for me? And I promise I'll come back. I'm sorry that I've got hard stop today.
Quick question I wasn't touched on yet. Trash in the city, more trash cans last summer. It was kind of a disaster, and I know that Jane and us got more trash cans put out and more pickup put out, but it was still an issue. And it comes into the neighborhood streets from the 101 section. Is there anything with trash and having more trash pickup or more trash receptacles on the street corners?
That's a great question. So I know that the new trash receptacles in the downtown area, they compact the trash and they have a really smart design. I don't know if we have the opportunity to extend that further down Coast Highway. I think that may be a good way to solve that problem without necessarily covering the street with trash cans. But I don't know. So that's one of the things that we'll look into, and we can get back. If you want to give your information to Esmeralda, that'd be something we could follow up with.
Just a quick update on that. OCNA's been able to facilitate 3 new trash cans with, regular deliveries in the neighborhood. I just need to know the corners that are impacted.
Okay, good. And sorry, I didn't hear that.
Good question.
Yeah, it's lightning round.
So I'm gonna be giving an update after you leave, in a few
awesome.
minutes about we call it the Seagaze Tower, which you probably know the history about it from Peter Weiss, the density, the foil of saying we're gonna give, low-income housing, but it being only 10 of those to make a 8-story tower. I have been notified by the builder that they will be commencing next month with building, but unfortunately we were informed that subcontractors will be left to find their own parking. Question for city council, what do we have in store to protect or try to mitigate the 2.5-year impact this will have?
No
on
idea.
residents?
That's one I'm gonna have to follow up with.
Yeah.
It sounds awful, but I don't have any expertise yet in there, but now it's gonna be something else.
Thank you.
Which is the best part about this job. I get to learn about all kinds of crazy things that I had no idea I'd be learning about.
Thank you.
Since some of the conversation was around traffic down here, down in the area, I was a little concerned, and maybe you can kind of watch for this. The gentleman who's in charge of traffic, the traffic engineer, whatever his name at the city, he, when we expressed our concern about narrowing the coast highway and the roundabouts, because of all the traffic, it would be hard to get out for those of us on the other side. He didn't seem to think that traffic was a problem. And I can tell you, right at Neptune and Coast Highway, I mean, and I don't know where he lives. A lot of people live out of the city, but we live right down there. And many times I've come home south on 5 to exit on 76 to get to Coast Highway. And now that you're narrowing the lanes to 2, you're gonna have traffic back up on the 5 coming south. Not only that, in that intersection there, and then you're putting a roundabout, I don't know if it's gonna back it up.
Yeah, that actually is gonna be a really interesting part of the design.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I don't think he has lived down there or grasped the,
that's why we're hiring somebody to design it, that's professional designers. So
well,
that-
I mean, just the traffic flow, you know, if you were to be down there on a weekend
Yeah.
in the summer,
In the summer.
not even
I know.
summer, all year now.
Well, and this goes in with a lot of the other requests that I talked about today. We have a lot of things that impact our traffic. There are things like the coaster, right? All those things need to be working together in a program that meets our needs best. I heard a great presentation from Carlsbad at NCTD about trenching their tracks so that they will have space on top of them for people to, I don't know, walk around in their neighborhood and do things that you like to do around town. So I'm really interested in being forward-thinking about the way we deal with these things and trying to do it programmatically and holistically, thinking about not just one step ahead, but what's coming the next 3 or 4 steps down the line. So I can't do that alone. You all know your neighborhood. Please feel free to reach out to me. And again, I'm sorry I have to run so early, but I'm more than willing to come back. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you, Eric, really appreciate it. And again, like he said, we'll have him back again. And, let's see, there's a couple other updates. Before we go into the Seagaze Tower update, does everybody know where that is, where the Lizard store is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, right next to that's a flat parking lot. And, one year, it was supposed to be a 6-story, beautiful condominium complex with 14 units. And now it's gonna have more. 167 rooms, 8 stories. And this is because of state stuff, okay? So, I mean, the city is really anti some of this stuff, but the impact to our neighborhood is, of course, parking and density from the standpoint of, people moving and cars and all that other stuff. I do want to take a minute here, because Michelle's going to update us on that. I don't know if you're familiar with the native plant tour that's run by Joan Bachman every year through the Seaside neighborhood. And this is where she highlights 10 or 12 native plantings in homes that are in the Seaside area. It's really a nice event. Anyway, this last one that was just last weekend, there were 224 people, and they got 27 volunteers that actually go on these little tours and guide everybody around. So OCNA helped sponsor that, and we were there with, bake sale goodies and stuff. So it would turn out really, really well. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, it's usually in April around Earth Day. Make sure you look at our green flyers, which I happily go out and get, because we send those out so that you can see what's all going on. Now, like I said, if you haven't gotten your name and legible email on our list, please do, so we can update you and give you the information about, Eric's email address, the Transit Center, public information email, some of the information that what you can do kind of thing. We can follow up with you on that. So again, if you haven't signed up, the sign-in sheets are over by Kurt. And with that, I will introduce Michelle. Is it Guillot? Guillot. Okay, and she's a board member, but also she changed her name, that's why I don't know, and it's French on the front. And she's gonna update us on the Seagaze Tower by the reptile store. Michelle?
Just for like 1 minute, I know some of you like to get to that transit meeting. But this is actually, I want to bring this up because this isn't, I say this every time, this isn't just about the Seagaze development, which some people still come to me even a year after the very disastrous voting of yes to build this 8-story tower on Seagaze in Ditmar. This is about developments in general that are coming in the pipeline because of the density limit that we currently have for the downtown area. So many of us, some of us sitting here in the audience, received an email or a mailer in the mail regarding the impact of the Seagaze development on the local neighborhood. So essentially, yeah, I guess there's some side conversations in the back, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, do you want to? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just want to make sure we have everyone's attention because everyone's, issues are important.
Michelle.
All right. So Seagaze development, we received a mailer that this development will be impacting our community for 2.5 years. Okay, so this is not just the few blocks related to the Seagaze area. This is pretty much the entire neighborhood around the Seagaze development. We were told that they would be neighbors with us and that they provided their email, upon which many of us did contact the developers way out in Kansas City, who informed us that subcontractors need to find their own parking. So you're talking about 8 stories, hundreds of subcontractors. I mean, we've already been slapped in the face with having this 8-story building. So I reached out to this, and they said we would do something, but the city has not given us those restrictions. If we go to a city where there are restrictions, we follow them. So we need to hold the city accountable. We've already been slapped in the face with this development. We need the city to protect us now as we're going through this 2.5-year ordeal as they build this 8-story tower in our neighborhood. So I have reached out. Jane's very kindly supporting on this. We're in contact with Russ Cunningham. They had not started to talk about them. By the way, they're starting May 15th. So it's a good thing that we contacted them, so the wheels are turning, but we really, if any of you are in the area, I'm going to keep everyone updated on this, but this is a slap in the face to residents. I really want to make sure that, that we have our rights protected. And I'm going to close out, okay, I'm getting passionate about it, I do get passionate about Seagaze. Let me take a step back. This is not just about Seagaze. This is about the density, the limit for that area, and this is a domino effect for, I'm hearing from other developers saying, ooh, this is great. All we have to do is say, put 10 low-income houses. City of Sacramento will tie the hands of the city because they don't have any control over that when that happens, right? I don't know if you guys know the rule, but if you have a certain percentage, then obviously I understand it should go into vote, but they're using it to their advantage. So to wrap it up, if you guys have any other concerns or anything, I have my information in our newsletters that go out. I'm here for you guys. I am on this. I'm working on it, making sure that we make this next 2.5 years as smooth as possible, but also that we get that density limit assessment back on the docket. This isn't about bringing, if it was about bringing housing to all, I'd be all for it. But it's unfortunately a ticket in the pocket of the developers to continue to build towers because they follow a certain percentage rule from the capital. Anyway, so that's, anyone, questions?
The number of units that allows them to have 100 stories, is that a city or a state?
It's a state thing, so yeah, that's why I'm saying the city,
Okay,
yeah.
well, what about, and I went to the building department, planning department before, what about getting the planning department, whoever it is, to lower the height restrictions, and then when they add another unit or two, well, it maybe will be 5 stories instead of 8?
So I'm gonna be speaking for the city right now because I learned so much the past couple years. Their hands are tied even on that.
Wow.
So for example, if they voted down
Yeah.
something and said to a big developer, you have to lower it 2 stories, they will get sued by the capital, by Sacramento, because they didn't follow the, the
No, but
fact.
I think they're going by the height standards now. So if the height standards is 4 stories, then
So,
they
so,
can add 2
so
more.
no, so
No?
the law is now in Sacramento is if you have at least 10% of low-income housing in your proposed development,
Right.
then you get 2, I think it's 2 or 3 freebies. So you can, what they did with Seagaze is they said, oh, we can go above 6 now, we're gonna do 8. And then the city, their hands are tied. I mean, they could go against it, but why would they want a lawsuit? Like
No, but
they,
I mean, if the city says the height limit is 6 stories
Yeah.
now, then they get 2 more
they can
stories.
say, I can get.
If the city sets the height limit lower,
It's the attorney met on that too, and that's like, you're really dealing with like, they could get sued again. The only solution, and that's what Peter Weiss called me on, the only solution is on the density for that area. So if they can say, if you can set a density limit, then obviously then that's, I mean, I get it, it's not lowering floors, but in a mathematical sense it is, right? Because then you can't stuff 170 people in a little square, they're little, this tower is just behind the reptile house. So it's this tiny thing going straight up, so that kind of could mitigate it.
What was the reasoning for, in the very beginning when we went and listened to their plans and everything, we understood with the 8 stories that they're going to have 3 stories going down for parking. But those 3 stories going down is not enough for everyone to have a car. And I know they said something to the effect of, well, they've got transportation, they've got all this public transportation. Well, if you live in, well, we live in the 100 block of Ditmar, actually right next to the yoga studio, which was an old market at one time. But anyway, on that block, it is so crowded right now. Once with the, we have the yoga studio, and in summertime, we get all the beach people because they come up on our streets because we can just walk and we don't have to pay. Well, that's okay, they go home at night. But the other thing is that on Sundays, we have all our church people. And so, and I was saying to Michelle one time, we had a refrigerator delivered, and the poor people, the truck had to park out in the middle of the street for a good half hour while they brought in our refrigerator because there was no place to park. And it's now that you're going to have people who are going to be working there, all the workers and the contractors and all, there's just, wherever they're going to park is going to be a mystery. And our alley, in fact, I was opening our gate in our alley and I almost got hit because I went out and, oh my car, and Stephen, he was waiting for me, he honks and he says, this car just didn't even, they just zoomed through your alley, and so anyway.
I was hoping that they could direct some of the building for these units that we're required to have into the empty warehouses that are all around. Bed and Bath is going out, Macaroni Grill has gone out, Outback I think is out,
Was it Stater
Fratelli's
Brothers
is out,
gone?
Stater Brothers.
Yeah,
Can
But
they
Nordstrom's is
can
coming
they-
to town.
But they have shopping there and there's transportation nearby.
Okay, so, not to wrap up too quickly, because it's all important. I mean, all this stuff happening is very important to each and every one
I
of
can
us.
wrap it real quick.
Okay.
But the
Traffic, yes,
Well,
but
not
back to what I was
having
saying,
enough
everything you guys are saying, thank you, like, I'm constantly in contact with the city, so if there's anything else that you guys are concerned, it's not even Seagaze, if you have a development near you that you're concerned I'm learning about the tricks of the trade related to these things and what they do, so I can be your advocate too if there's anything else that's happened.
I'd like to make a
Thank you.
statement, not a question, so this will take a second. There's strong city councils like Huntington Beach and Coronado that are
Yes.
resisting the state, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, they have good residents with money in their back pocket, and good lawyers.
Cause they don't take the money,
Yeah.
they don't take the funds.
Yeah.
Well, what happens, honestly, is that, you know, it comes with the council. The council has to put pressure on staff, including the city attorney, that has, you know, his job is to protect the council and the city. So he gives them this is the plus and this is the minus, this is the risk, this is the reward. That's what he does. And then the council has to decide and direct what the city will do. So if we want that kind of action, we have to take more ourselves involvement in making sure that we meet, we email, we voice the opinions, and as a group, individually and as a group, so that we can give them more, what is the word? I don't want to say courage, but give them more leverage, yeah, that we're behind it. We want them as our representative to do these things. So it does take us. I'm not saying it's all our fault or all our responsibility, but if we want to make an impact, we got to do it.
Isn't this a result of having these zones, having a council member for each zone, and they don't really work together as much anymore?
I don't think so. I think actually having districts makes
better.
people more responsible, because otherwise it's at large.
Yeah, but the thing is, a person is a council member for a district way over there, well, it's not my, I don't have that problem.
I
so-
have not found that with
Yeah,
any
fine.
one of them, not with anyone, because they've all been here forever, you know, and they're their home
Not
too.
ours.
Ours is brand new,
Which one?
the one who was standing
Eric?
He's lived
But he's lived here.
He's lived here.
He's
there.
lived here.
He's a new council.
He didn't have any opinions, he just told you what he knew,
Well,
so.
he.
Yeah.
God only knows where
he
he
stayed
stands.
longer.
Right.
He
Well,
should
yeah,
stay
I know that,
longer.
we're all disappointed with that.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's a couple of things that you can help with, and one of the things that OCNA wants to do is to take a stand, not a stand, but really start as a group influencing the city with more direct, like usually the board members, me, Lane, will go to the council meetings and read from, you know, representing OCNA. So a couple of things that we want to do is work on the traffic circulation plan, making sure that it doesn't impact these neighborhood streets, because it's unsafe. Bottom line, it's unsafe. There's gonna be a greater mixture of pedestrians, bikes, cars, and now you wanna add all these buses.
It's gonna create more traffic.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we can ask. If you guys agree that we should do that, just raise your hand. Now, the other thing is like this parking thing, we can also address that and send an email to council saying we met, the membership really wants some tangible action on the Seagaze subcontractor parking problem anticipated.
You know, Jamie, remember with the resort, they cooperated really well, and they did a whole diagram on the
Yes.
exit and the entrance of the trucks and the this
We
and
have
that.
precedents that we could follow.
Yeah.
We'll have roads
Okay.
probably closed.
Yeah.
Right,
You know.
I know, but we don't know that yet, so if you want us to do that, raise your hand. Okay. Now, the other thing is, you know, we have some other things going on, like, you know, usually the board, we understand something's going on, we hear something's going on, we investigate with the city or others, and we start trying to gather information so that we could come back and either put it in here saying, you need to do something, and when we say that, we mean it. You need to email, and not just as a family, every single one in your family, because the numbers talk, okay? And so this is what we would need your help with. We can go ahead, stand in front of council, stand in front of the planning commission, representing you, but we also need you to do this too, okay? So, there was one other item that I can't remember what it was, because, sorry? No.
What about the survey about flyers that's on here?
Oh, yeah, the flyers. We have a survey going on, and among like things that you'd like to hear about or what you'd like to participate, it asks if you enjoy or would like to have these delivered, because we have volunteers.
Or digital,
Or, well, we do digital,
but
but we were
only.
thinking of just doing digital.
Stay with the white paper on digital, yes.
The white paper, yeah. Now, the thing is some people aren't computer savvy, you know, and they like this, it's a reminder.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is an effort, and we have, you know, volunteers that do that, and we just need to ask.
Feedback.
And it's expensive, yeah.
Well, you know what, it is, we pay for the green paper, but
We do have someone helping
Main
us.
Street,
Yeah, they print it for us.
Oceanside prints them for us for free.
It's a huge area.
Yeah, it's a big favor. And, you know, we put a little something in there for them every month, you know, because it's a favor. So the question is, should we still have these or just go digital? Raise your hand if you want them. Yeah, it's about half and half.
But there's a survey, so we'd really like to have
Yeah, so do the
feedback,
survey on
please.
it.
You can print it out, it takes all your ink.
Okay, so, and then of course, we always need volunteers. So, but we do, so if you would have like an hour a month to participate in your neighborhood, maybe just going up and down your street, saying hi to your neighbors and handing them one of these. Is that hard?
Or not.
No. You know, okay, Julia will do it, we've got another.
Good, I can give Julia some of mine.
And Kelly and I do it, and so all we need is, you know, a few people to just go up and down their street. So, it's not like it's killer stuff, and you get to say hi to your neighbors. Okay, so let's see.
And on the results of this survey for the flyers, I mean, it doesn't mean we could still do a hybrid version. I mean, not maybe take it off of most of the routes walking and still place them at certain businesses where they can be, you know, in windows, so somebody walking by could see them. We don't, rather than printing out 1,000 a
In
month.
businesses, I
Maybe
like
leave
that
it out like a
idea.
reader.
What's that?
In businesses, that's a nice idea.
Yeah, 'cause I
And
mean,
some of the coffee
yeah.
shops or wherever people are.
Okay, so I was reminded that these maps are free, and they are from the Native Plant Tour, and they show where the houses are, and then also there's a list on the back of all the plants that are being profiled. So if you want any of these, you can,
I wanted one because I miss going
oh
Sunday.
no, shame on you.
golf.
Anybody else want one?
Did you guys want?
All right, without further ado, we've run out of time, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. And again, I will send out an email with some of that email contact information about what you can do. So make sure your legible email is on the sign-in sheet.